showing you how to demonstrate some great Valentine's Day desserts. But first I wanted to talk a little bit about our GWP we have today. With any $100 purchase in the home store, anything from housewares, tabletop, electronics, anything in the store, you'll get this great gift, which includes dance lessons from the International Studio of Miami. They're here today and they'll show you some of their dancers that will be performing after Sophie finishes. That's a great value. It's a $220 value, so very great to have for Valentine's Day. And also a wine stopper set. So make sure you shop after the event, $100 or more in the home store. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sophie.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sophie Rojas Tal, and I go by Sophie. Basically today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our bakery. Our bakery's name is Yummy Cakes and More, and we're located on 128th Avenue and Bird Road. Basically at my bakery, we cater to people that have allergies as well as the general public. We're a nut-free bakery, and we do regular cupcakes, cookies, and cakes. Everything from a standard birthday cake to those designer wedding cakes that you see on TV. We also do egg-free and vegan cakes for people that have allergies or that choose to be vegan as a lifestyle. Today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be demoing some brownies for Valentine's Day with an ice cream and a raspberry sauce. And we're also going to give you a sample of our red velvet cake. And that's something that you'll be able to get from our bakery at any time as of our grand opening, which is going to be in about 2 weeks. We have been in business for 5 years at Yummy Cakes and More, but we just recently moved to a storefront about 3 weeks ago. We're really excited about that. It's a great opportunity to get the public to come into the bakery, and we're going to have cakes, cookies, and cupcakes available to purchase as of our grand opening. I have been baking probably for a long time, probably about 15-20 years. I look really young, but I'm not as young as I look. I started baking with my mom. My mom made cookies a lot for us, and she sold cookies at Christmas time to make money for us back in the 80s. So I kind of took a love to baking because of my mom. And as a result of that, when I needed to make money to buy Christmas presents as well, I started baking cookies and making cakes. And that's pretty much how I got into baking, and I just have a love for it. And you always have to do what you love, so this is where I am today. I'm going to go ahead and start the brownie mix, the brownie recipe first. It's a very simple recipe, has not too many ingredients. Everything can be found at your local supermarket. It's quick and easy, and it's something that everybody's going to love. Who doesn't love brownies and ice cream? And then you jazz it up a little bit with some raspberry sauce. So it's going to be really nice. You guys will see. I'm going to go over the ingredients just so that you guys know what it is that I'm doing. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me either in between or at the end, however you feel most comfortable. We're going to start working with some unsweetened chocolate. This is very easy to find at your local supermarket. And you need 4 ounces. And it's really great and convenient because they come in these packages, and this is 1 cube is 1 ounce. It'll come 8 ounces, so you can actually double this recipe and use the whole box or only use 4. What you have to do is we're going to go ahead and start melting the chocolate on a double boiler. You want to do it on a double boiler so that you don't burn your chocolate. A lot of times you can try and melt your chocolate in a microwave, but it tends to go from melted to burned instantly, so you have to be very careful. So it's very simple. This is already 3 ounces. I'm going to cut off the extra ounce here. And basically it's easy. You just have to roughly chop it. And we're going to get it in a double boiler. A double boiler, basically, if you don't know what that means, what that is you just take any kind of cooking receptacle, you boil water, and you put a bowl on top, and it's an indirect heat that will help to melt your chocolate, but it's not going to burn it. If you try to put chocolate directly into a pan and melt it, you're probably going to burn it, and it's going to make a mess. So you definitely don't want to do that. It might be a little time consuming, but if you're doing 1 ounce or 4 ounces, it's going to take the same amount of time. And if you want to make more brownies, you can just make more. Multiply the recipe. I do it all the time. So we're just going to chop it up. It just has to be a rough chop, nothing fancy or crazy. And then we're just going to bring it into the bowl over here. And then while that's melting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep an eye on it, but I'm going to go over the other ingredients and what the the process is to putting this together, and I'll just keep an eye on it and stir it with a rubber spatula. That's what these are. This nice trusty tool here. You see at the bottom of the bowl, it's already melting. And basically with chocolate, as long as it's pretty much 3/4 melted, as you continue to stir it, the heat of the chocolate's already melted. It's gonna take the rest, already melt the rest of it. So what you'll do is once it's about a little more than halfway melted, you could take it off of the double boiler, keep it at room temperature, and we're gonna use it. You want it to cool off a little bit before we bring it into the other ingredients. So our other ingredients are 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter at room temperature. You use some of it to grease your pan. I'm using an 8x8 pan. This is easy. This is a standard baking pan. If you double your recipe, you may want to use either a quarter sheet if you triple or quadruple it, which you can do. You'll use a half sheet pan. A quarter sheet pan generally is a 9x13-inch pan, and a half sheet is a 12x16. It could be 12x16, 12x18. It's just you don't want it to be too thick, because your brownies, you don't want it to be the thickness of a cake. So what I did here is I just put parchment paper and I greased the sides with butter. Then, so we have the butter, 3/4 cup of sugar. Corn syrup is 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon. 2 eggs at room temperature. My vanilla extract. Lukewarm milk. All-purpose flour, and I have my baking powder and my salt together. So now that we went over that, let me just check on the chocolate. See how it's getting nice and melted. The finer that you chop your chocolate, the faster it's going to melt, just because, if you have a big chunk, it takes a while for it to melt down. And you really want this to melt all the way, because if you have a chunk of chocolate, it's not a big deal, because you'll just have a chunky chocolate chip, chunky chocolate chip kind of brownie. But if you really want a smooth brownie, then you really want this to be all the way melted. So it's almost there. I'm going to go ahead and start creaming together my butter and the sugar. That's the next step in the recipe. So what creaming means basically is that you can use a standard mixer like this. This is a KitchenAid with a paddle attachment, or you can just use a hand mixer, whatever you have available. If you have to do it by hand, you can do it by hand. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. So I'm going to get that all nice and creamed together. Check on the chocolate. I have a few little chunks still in here, but I think it's warm enough that we can turn this off and it's going to be good. Okay, so the recipe calls to take this off of the stove and just let it cool down. The reason that you want this to cool down is because when you have eggs and a warm liquid like chocolate or milk, you don't want to have scrambled eggs in your brownies. So that's why you want it to come to room temperature a little bit. Okay, so we're creaming this. It doesn't take long at all. Okay, now we're going to add in our corn syrup. Corn syrup, what it's going to do is, it doesn't really add too much of a taste, but it gives you that nice gooey taste into the brownie that everybody loves. Okay? Now, we want to go ahead and combine this. You don't want to put too much air into it because you don't want your brownie to be too fluffy. It's kind of cakey, but you don't want to whip in too much air into it. So it looks about right. I don't know if you guys can see this, right? Okay. Alright, so that looks about right to me right now. So now what we're going to do is the rest of the ingredients, we're just going to whisk them in by hand. This is a really easy, quick recipe that you can make for your sweetheart on Valentine's Day. They'll thank you, I'm sure. And they'll have to thank you with a nice piece of jewelry or something from the home store, right? Okay. So next what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the eggs and we're going to whisk them in thoroughly. And at this point we take it out of the machine because again you don't want to put it too much air into the brownie. So you don't have to do this for very long. You want to incorporate it for about 30 seconds. As you see in the recipe, it tells you it's kind of going to look a little bit broken up, but that's okay. And now we're going to whisk in the melted chocolate. Get all of that nice chocolate in there. Now that we have the chocolate in, we're going to incorporate. So it looks a little broken up, but that's okay. It's exactly what it's supposed to look like. And now here we're just going to put in the vanilla extract. Okay. And I believe the milk. Okay, and the milk. The milk is supposed to be lukewarm, okay? I'm going to bring that in. Usually when you're baking, I recommend that you pre-measure everything so that you don't miscalculate anything. Baking's not really like cooking. Baking is kind of a science, so you really have to be very accurate with your measurements because things can go wrong very quickly when you're baking and you don't measure things properly. So I've already pre-measured my flour, and here I have my baking powder and my salt. So I'm going to put that together, and then I'm going to bring this into the chocolate mixture. Brownies have very little flour in them. Okay? And basically all you want to do is get that flour incorporated, and that's it. That brownie mix is done. That was pretty easy, right? And you'll see they're so yummy. You can also get these from our bakery at Yummy Cakes and More. It's not something that we do very often, but we definitely make them there too. We have also the cookies and cupcakes. You'll see, you'll be getting samples of some of that stuff. So basically you bring it into your pan and you just want to even it out. Now the recipe says that it's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes. Usually when I'm baking, I underestimate the time and I check them probably about 5 minutes before the recipe calls, because ovens are all very different as far as temperatures go. So you really want to make sure that you don't over bake brownies. Brownies are going to be done when you insert either a toothpick or a bamboo skewer that you have at home and it's a little bit crummy. Because when you take it out of your oven, it's going to continue baking for a little bit. So you don't want it to be dry or not taste good. Okay, so I'm going to just this is finished. I'm going to go ahead and get this in the oven.